Hamstrongs to the finish. That's not finish, but finish. Finish. 'Cause I eats me spinach. It's a unique turn of phrase, no matter how you look at it. Popeye is, you see, not an educated seafaring gentleman, but you know what? He did pretty well for himself. Have you got 3 different ZX Spectrum games about you? No. Well, it wasn't worth getting that degree then, was it? Popeye, created as a comic strip in 1929 by E.C. Sager for his Thimble Theatre strip, was a truly enduring star. His cast of characters are truly grotesque in their look, with the sort of violent love triangle between Popeye Olive Oil and Bluto that you might get in a Midlands flat-roof pub on a Friday night, as easily as you would in the oceanic harbour town that Popeye resides in. In 1933, Max Fleischer adapted them for a series of movie theatre shorts for Paramount that continued well into the 1950s and later were distributed by Warner Brothers. These remained incredibly popular and were followed by numerous comic books, a Robin Williams movie, a ton of video games including a classic NES and arcade effort from Nintendo, and a string of different television shows, the 2 of which I remember the most being the all-new Popeye Hour from 1978 until 1981 and Popeye and Son, where Popeye had Olive Oil on lockdown with a ring on her finger and a pre-teen kid creatively called Popeye Jr. And if you're wondering why Bluto is called Brutus where in those cartoons when you were growing up, well, apparently it was a rights thing. Apparently Warner Brothers thought that Paramount owned the rights to the name Bluto. They didn't, and they'd just been using that name all along when they didn't need to. You'd think they'd know. Anyway, that's that. While there were 3 Popeye games officially released by DK-Tronics and Alternative Software on the ZX Spectrum, it's worth noting the attempts to bring the classic Nintendo arcade to the Sinclair machine, both after its commercial lifespan and during the time it was eating spinach and punching the old Commodore Bluto in and around its chops. Parker Brothers had one ready to go for the Interface 2 peripheral, which came out on a ROM cartridge. Get your instant load times away from my Spectrum, you console-aping heathen. There's some really good homebrews of Popeye as well. It is worth playing them because, you know, that Nintendo arcade machine was a pretty good game. A shame, really. The first release came courtesy of DK-Tronics in 1985, and our old friend Don Priestley, the man who hated small, monochrome sprites. Don was the magnificent brain behind Benny Hill's Madcap Chase, Minder, and the incredible Trapdoor game, which, if you've been watching since the beginning of this channel, was way back in episode 1. In a way, Popeye takes some inspiration from the arcade game in the form of its central conceit. Popeye must collect hearts and give them to the awkward collection of intertwined Q-tips, that is, his girlfriend Olive Oil, in order to win her love. Whilst jealous bearded obese ape Bluto attempts to cockblock with physical violence. Popeye wanders the streets of his seaside town, picking up the hearts that are pinned up on windows, balconies and lighthouses, and he must return them to Olive's house, all the time accosted by not only Bluto, but by a menagerie of hostile beasties and sea hags. Contact with one of them will put the aesthetically challenged sailor on his rump, but he can be easily revived with a tin of spinach, which can be found all around the nooks and crannies in his neighbourhood. If Popeye doesn't have one, then sorry mate, you won't be taking the skim boat to Tuna Town in the port of Miss Olive Oil. Popeye can avoid molestation by ducking in and out of the screen, where an enclave of some sort is available. You'll need to do this to enter various grooves and doorways in order to locate the ropes, keys and hearts that Popeye needs to make his day complete. Popeye can only carry 8 items at one time, and so it's a game that relies a lot on trial and error in terms of figuring out what you need, when, and which screens to go to first. The huge hulking sprite that represents our seafaring hero looks the part, but this is a problem with a lot of Priestley games in the fact that he turns and moves about as quickly as an ocean liner. It's this slow control combined with the huge graphics that slightly hinder the game's enjoyment, as you can find yourself in trouble very easily with not a lot of time or room to react and get out of the way. That said, the graphics really are good for an earlier Spectrum game. It's as colourful as the flank of an ice cream van, and the general presentation is of a high standard. The September 1985 Crash gave it a 90% with the prerequisite Crash Smash. They declared it as a very attractive, cunningly programmed game. Your Spectrum, which is of course Your Sinclair under its previous moniker, informed us that they would spend the green stuff, no, not the spinach, on this game, and they gave it an 8 out of 10. They didn't need to do that. They probably got it for free as a review copy. Sinclair user were also fans of the swollen-wristed Ocean Adventurer, giving it a 4 out of 5 and saying the graphics are excellent and very large. Well, they're not wrong, are they? What kind of a review is that? 1991's Popeye 2 sees the licence go over to Alternative, who want all the cartoon licences, thank you very much. Interestingly, the DK-Tronics title will go on to find itself packaged together by Alternative Software with both Popeye 2 and Popeye 3 as a collection in late 1992. Popeye 2 was a £2.99 budget release and also an action platformer. You can't go wrong with that, surely. It finds the gurning seaman at odds with Bluto again, who has kidnapped Olive and placed her in a variety of perilous situations. Doesn't Bluto fancy olive oil? I've often found that abducting women usually has that opposite effect on charming them. You can't go around kidnapping them and expecting them to love you. Ignore the Stockholm Syndrome effect, it doesn't work. It's damned baloney, I say. With graphics not quite as colourful and with sprites not quite as big as the previous game, Popeye 2 still manages to have really big sprites and some bright, colourful backgrounds, so well done on being sensible alternative. The cast of characters in Popeye 2 is bolstered by series regulars like Eugene the Jeep, Wimpy, Sweet Pea and Alice the Goon, which really helps bring the cartoon to life in the form of this game. But it also presents some unique challenges. You have to help feed Wimpy's shameful addiction to burgers, and you have to prevent baby Sweet Pea from hurling itself to its death off of girders or ledges. Spinach provides Popeye with extra strength for his fisting when he encounters people like Bluto and Alice the Goon. You must leap from platform to platform, avoiding hazards and defusing bombs, trying to reach the end of the level, in order to rescue your skinny other half before the obese bully snatches her off to another location. It's simple stuff really, controls are responsive, some hazards are annoyingly difficult to avoid, but all in all it's pretty decent fare. Alternative have done worse games, that's for certain, there's one in a minute. So Crash from May 1991 gave Popeye a 60%, stating that the gameplay is very simplistic and for a game aimed at younger players it's a little bit tough. Your Sinclair loved Popeye 2 in their May 1991 edition, a 95%, and their mega game. At a bargain price, you'd have to be stupider than two short planks who just failed their GCSEs to miss it. That's what they said. Sinclair user, also in their May 1991 edition, compared Popeye 2 to a chicken balti. Nice when you really fancy it, but only good enough for the occasional outing. Then they followed it up by throwing out some shade. The type of game you get on the cover of Crash. Not bad, just not great. Hark at thee. Popeye 3. Wrestle Crazy. Wrestling. Cartoons about deformed port workers. The robot from the old TV show Lost in Space, the xenomorph from the hit film Alien, together at last on your ZX Spectrum. What a curious goulash of absolutely unconnected things all boiled together in a big old pan of confusion. No doubt Popeye 3 was assembled by a managerial focus group, but not in the boardroom, but around a table in a pub stacked high with empty pint and shot glasses. What's this thing the kids are watching with the steroidy men? Oh, that's American wrestling. Ooh, get that license. No, Ocean have it. Damn! Okay, let's use our licenses we already have to make a wrestling game. What suits wrestling the most? Count Duckula? Not really, no. Shoot people? Nah. Sooty and Sweep? Are you on drugs, sir? Popeye! He fights? Yeah, okay, fine. I don't think kids will be fooled by it, but you know what? Let's get Bluto in a leotard. No. Let's think about this. I think we'll keep Popeye, but what should we have him fight? What do kids like? They like mutants? They like zombies? Oh, I know. Let's put aliens in the game. That's a good idea. Okay, but why? And so it came to be, at least via this headcanon that I've just come up with, but it's hard to think that it panned out much differently from that. It is pretty bad. Graphics are okay, the crowd is full of interstellar goons, and Popeye's pals are on the outside of the ring too, sometimes offering help, but with Bluto, well, he's never been your friend, has he? So he's throwing explosives into the ring like an absolute arsehole. Luckily for you though, you can lure your alien aggressors into those bombs and make them take damage that way. You can perform about 3 moves, which is not very substantial for a wrestling game, and to perform them you have to wag your joystick like a teen boy on his first night after finding X-Hamster. It plays pretty wretchedly, as you'd suspect. A Daley Thompson's decathlete style control system does not suit a wrestling game in my opinion. So yes, it is pretty poor stuff, and in my opinion certainly the worst of the 3. And no, Popeye doesn't get a chest burster come out of him if he loses to the alien, more's the pity. No Crash review, but the 2 Sinclair magazines stick their roar in, as we knew they would. Incidentally, Alternative did something quite clever with the cover tapes. They had a reviewer from each magazine feature as the opponent for Popeye in the demo, which they allowed both magazines to put on their covers. Very clever marketing. Well done, Alternative. Probably should have put that time into making the game better though. In their issue 83, Your Sinclair gave it a 56%, saying that after Popeye 1 and 2, it's a great disappointment. Christ, they were lucky to get that cover tape, weren't they? Sinclair user gave Wrestle Crazy an 84. Said that super colourful cartoon graphics with an excellent licence gives Popeye 3 a solid lead over its predecessors. Does it though? I don't think it does. And that is it for the Popeye trilogy on the ZX Spectrum. But what do we have for you next time? Well, it's another trilogy. The games of Postman Pat. Wow, that's going to be exciting. He has a cat, you know. Like, subscribe, and Kay, thanks, bye.